Good morning, Robbie. Are you ready to record episode 3 of Forged in Silence podcast?
Good morning, Steve. Why, yes, I am.
Why, yes, you are.
On this daylight savings time where we lost an hour morning.
Oh, God. It's the worst.
So for me, I'm grateful for spring forward, and I'll tell you why. When I was living in Arizona, they don't have daylight savings time, and they're on, we could say, fall back an hour before. And I was living in Flagstaff, working at the Grand Canyon, and I would always want to get home to go mountain biking after work. So I'd hurry and get home, and I'd have about a half hour left flight. Just the way the mountains are situated there and, being that hour behind. And I was like, if we were just an hour ahead, I would have that extra hour of light. And I didn't have that extra hour of light. And, I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and it might be going away here in the United States. But I am just always so grateful now for that extra hour of light, just because I had to live through that, not having that extra hour of light and being outside, rushing home from work and not getting it. Growing up in Utah, I always had that extra hour of light. Then when it gets taken away from you, it was a little hard.
So my proposal here is leave the extra hour of light, and then we're good.
Yeah, and that's, I've heard that we're maybe after the spring forward, it's not going back.
Really?
Yeah, that's
I'm
the
okay with
proposal anyways.
I'm okay with the darker morning and the later evening. It gets too dark too early in the winter, and of course when you get that hour back, the summer's later. I get it. And I think it was done for the farmers way back in the day. And I guess, I don't know if it's still relevant to them or not. And I guess that's a valid question, because if it's relevant to them, they make our food. So if that's the case and it's that sensitive to the food, then leave it, because I like to eat.
So do I.
It's a thing. You know what I mean? If that's where it has to go to help them out, I'm all for it. Really, in the end, I'll stop being greedy and sensitive about it and bitchy. It still screws with my schedule, though.
Oh, yeah, it totally does. Especially the spring forward.
I woke up this morning, and then, I could have done this differently. I could have changed my clocks over. I could have done all of that stuff. But I never know. I always question whether my clock is right or not. So I sent a friend a text message this morning saying, hey, what time do you have? Like, I'm not believing my cell phone, which changes automatically, but I'm still not believing it. I need confirmation. So I found confirmation this morning. I knew what time it was, and it's light outside, and it'll be lighter an hour later in the day, which means this dog right here, she goes by the sun up and the sun down. As soon as it gets dark, she starts to chill, and as soon as it gets light, it is time to go rip roaring. It's time for food.
Yep. I wish, dog life simple. Like, sun comes up, we get energy. Sun goes down, we go to sleep.
Right?
We have totally lost that with the...
We do not live dog life.
No.
I don't squat in the front yard. I don't think that would be a...
Hey, well, that kind of leads into, what we're going to talk about. Like,
it kind of does, doesn't it?
Yeah, we can, as men, just go to the bathroom wherever we feel like it. Women can't too. And being in the sport that I'm in, I have seen plenty of women just pop a squat or do what they got to do anywhere up in the mountains, on the trails.
Yep, I've seen some women, it doesn't bother them at all. It's just, it's my time. Let's go, get her done, just like a guy, right? And carry on. So the women that can do that, I don't know. To me, that's impressive to me, because it's just another barrier that they don't believe exists for them, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was kind of brought up the way that, depending, there was not very many barriers that between men and women we could both accomplish the same thing and live the same type of life with how you pursued your life and not have those barriers put up.
No, you might need something a little bit different, but that's regardless. The topic you and I decided to talk about today is masculinity. we're gonna cross those lines between masculine and feminine, and I think there's a whole spectrum that exists in here. And the first thing that comes to mind, and this has come up in class a couple of times too, especially my econ class, is, and the one thing that I kind of believe is there's been what feels like a massive attack on masculinity in the last decade or so, right? An attack on call it the patriarchy, attack on toxic masculinity, which in some sense and form, I mean, it's entirely possible, but like, if you look at a guy like Andrew Tate, that is, to me, that's the toxic masculinity part of, that's alpha male rubbing shit in your face. But when you have such a lack of that exists as a healthy example of it, it's going to be the example.
True. And it's also, what lens you're viewing that through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, as you know, like David Goggins, right? He is pretty masculine. And if I view it through my lens with David Goggins, the shit he's saying is good.
Yeah.
It's, be a man. It's just be a man and do hard shit and get through the day. And if he was saying be a woman, it would be the same thing to me. I would, yes, it's coming from a man, but all he is saying is do hard shit and get through the day and be the best person you can.
Yeah, that's way different than Tate's message.
Correct. Yeah, but on Tate's message though, it, like you were saying, it's been taken away though, right? So he's pushing forward and saying this is what a man should be, whether we agree or not. This is what a man should be, and this is what a man was. Yeah, there's some, other stuff in there, but now it gets to be played with, right? Because there isn't that force, or now it's become toxic. So someone as Andrew Tate can stand up there and say, this is what I perceive as masculine. It's, money, girls, cars,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff, right? Then if you go through that other lens with like Goggins, going out there and proving yourself to yourself. So we've really lost that whole, what, in my opinion, what masculinity is through, some years of what men are supposed to do is being, I don't know how to put it any other way, but not right anymore.
Yeah, and I think of this, like if you look at the technology side, look at where society is going, right? 25 years ago, we're still very industrial. We're still very hands-on. We're like, tech isn't really a major part of society yet. So everything is still hands-on. It's still very manual. It's still very requires muscle. It still requires that. We're moving into a time in society where even though that stuff is still necessary, it's not necessary in the level of volume it was back then, right? With tech being computer desk jobs and that sort of thing, there's already a decline in testosterone in men, like it's gone way too far the other way.
Yeah.
You have this, I think if you want to call it like an evolution, right? Society has changed, technology has changed, things have changed within, and I mean, you and I, even from when our version of what a man looked like when we were growing up, because our parents were boomer babies, likely, right? Like my dad was born 59. So his version of a man coming from his father is going to be back in the Depression and surviving through like a lot of crap, right? If we look at just a 2-generation separation, things have changed huge, and they're changing even more rapidly now because of technology and AI. There's a redefinition. There's modern masculinity. What does that look like? And I think you and I, because of our past and what we've been tried to overcome and working on overcoming, because both you and I are in recovery. I consider myself recovered, but that doesn't mean I still don't do these things. But I've had to learn how to talk about my feelings. I've had to learn how to be emotionally responsible. I've had to learn what my authentic self is. I know these are these new buzzwords nowadays, but it's also something that I think men overall, especially in our generation, are trying to grasp what my role is now in this new society. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. As you were talking, I was thinking, what society used to portray, being masculine was. And I remember growing up, it was always, the iron worker, or, the guy doing cement, or the framer, the construction guys, right? It was always the guys building our infrastructure, keeping the, the cities and all that going. And that's what we saw, right? And we were always told that, open doors for women and, make sure they're safe, protect them. And now with, technology, we get to see this different light, right? It's, as you were saying, men doing IT jobs, and our infrastructure with IT is moving incredibly fast with the need of our needs. Service, there's all kinds of services we need that now rely on computers. Do we still need the people building and the plumbers and the framers and the cement workers? Of course, we'll always need those. But now we've seen the shift of where men are supposed to be sitting behind a desk. And this is a society thing, and it's coming from one side of society, and it's coming from the females, I believe. They want to see softer men. They've got, not all of them, opinion they've got thrown in their face that a man is a man when they're manly, the lumberjack, whatever, chopping wood, all that. And for some women, that seems a little aggressive, and I understand that. And now they want to see, this is just my opinion again, a man sitting behind a desk, a soft man. And you mentioned, in our recovery, we've had to figure out who we are, and we've done a lot of self-work and emotions and all that, where, that is something new to all of us in this spot, but it's also new to men now, that where we need to talk about our feelings or our emotions and stuff like that. And it's okay to talk about that stuff. And you're talking about the evolution. It's like now men are in a different spot, and manliness is perceived different through a woman's eye. And even the younger men, this low testosterone eye is totally different. And to me, it's a little crazy at times, because, if we took away all the men that took care of our infrastructure, our cities would crumble in days.
Yeah. I mean, each gender still has a role, right? And I think when we get into this, what the modern masculine is, and I think what modern masculinity is, in some sense, is what I said before. How do you fit your masculinity into this new developing society where technology is more king than in the industrialized world, right? And I feel like there's that shift. We have messages sent algorithmized to us, right? That each person individually has their own specialized feed of whatever. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet, except for all you have to tell it is, I love fish, I love shrimp, and I love steak. And it's going to continue to feed you those three things in as many different ways as possible, right? So like seeing an outside version in a different opinion is something you're going to have to go looking for, as opposed to it just continue to be fed to you. And so one of the messages was, especially when Tate was super popular, is masculinity is got shit on. Very few people. I really enjoy how Jordan Peterson kind of talks about this a little bit, right? The modern man right now kind of feels lost.
Oh yeah,
to
for
a
sure.
certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
We're both trying to figure this one out still. Where's my role? Where do I fit? What do I do? How do I figure this part out? I'm figuring out the emotional intelligence and that sort of stuff And I think in some senses, I got too soft, but I didn't know how to be hard either, right? Without feeling like a complete asshole, the people pleaser in me and all the rest of those things. I'm learning now that being and holding true to my word, somebody can think I'm an asshole just fine as long as I believe that I'm doing the right thing in the moment, right? And we're afraid of being an asshole. We're afraid of being dicks. And then if you are, then that's labeled as being toxic. And it's not. I think a lot of different things can exist in the same place at the same time that don't have to agree with each other, right? There's 8 billion people in this world. We're all not going to agree on things,
I hope
right?
not.
We're all not going to agree on things. We're allowed to have our differences. That's what make us unique. We're allowed to just not agree and not be friends and not have the same ideas. And I'm going to say ideas, not opinions. And the reason why I'm going to say that is opinions are bullshit. You can throw those out with the bathwater, right? They're not an idea. And a discussion about an idea is way, way different than these opinions on things, right? It's just what do they call that? The lowest level of communication you can have is gossip. In the middle is opinion when it's vibrationally, and then ideas. So a discussion on an idea, and I mean I get caught in all three of them. Gossip is generally the one that I catch myself the most saying, nope, okay, I got to get out of this. And I'm still within trying to find the balance of idea and opinion.
Yeah, that's, gossip, that fuels a lot of conversations in this world. My daily work, I would say 90% of the conversation is gossip. Yeah.
Workplaces are horrible for gossip.
Yep. Right. Because we want to
are
make
way too busy, worried about what everyone else is doing instead of concentrating on what we need to do ourselves.
Exactly. Then if you have an opinion, then that becomes gossip. But then when you have ideas, that's when it all stops. Because no one has a leg to stand on when there's ideas thrown out there and stuff like that. Going back to what you were saying with, the technology and that, I find it interesting that we're here now in society, views women one way and men another way. Like from the beginning, women can have, babies, mothers, family, men supporting, make the babies, provide safety and food and shelter, whatever else it is. And now, like, both of these can do the same thing now. Well, kind of, right? Besides the having babies and making babies, but we could go down a whole different rabbit hole with that whole discussion. But
we can.
The two genders were this, and now they're a melting pot of different ideas, we could say, which is fine. But we've lost some stuff here and there, right? Women keep complaining that chivalry is dead.
Well, they killed it.
I was going to say, well, you fucking killed it, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you guys killed it. I don't know if you can look back and see what you've done throughout the last 30 years and why you've killed it. Opening a door for a woman now is bad. Sometimes
can be insulting. It's like giving a thumbs up nowadays. I don't know when a thumbs up turned into an insult and being dismissive, because it, like, giving you a thumbs up used to be like, okay, cool, we're good. Right? And now it's turned into something completely different. Like the next generation was a thumbs up is what is that Southern term?
I don't know.
Forget what it is. Like, aren't you lovely, or God bless your heart.
You're right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the kindest, most deepest insult you can get,
Yeah. It's odd that, it really falls back down to the gossip too, back into these things. And, well, he didn't open the car door for me. Okay. Right now, women, they didn't have their rights. Now they have their rights. They've had their rights for a long time. Now we're on this equal playing field, right? It's 50-50 in a marriage, relationship, friendship, whatever. It's really 50-50. It's about the balance of give and take. And I feel for the longest time, men had to put out something more on one side. Women had to do the same thing on another side. Family taking care of the kids and all that. And now we're meshed together into this 50-50 thing, and we can't fucking figure it out.
Well, you have the traditional feminine role where it's the nurturer, the raiser, this will piss people off, make dinner, clean the house, all of
Make
that
me
stuff.
my sandwich.
Right? Like that's that's not the traditional role anymore, right?
No,
And
not at all.
and that's fine. I can vacuum and do dishes and make dinner and change a diaper. Fine, fair enough. And it's not a problem for me. But you're right. We're trying to figure out how to mesh spectrums of femininity and masculinity within both sides. For us to be equal, sharing some of those roles is important. But I think we also can't disguise that you are still female and that I am still male. And these are things that you're just naturally naturally better at than I would be. You know what I mean? And I would be naturally better at some of the likely more physical things than you are, because that's just how we're built, right? And I think part of the mental health crisis that you see in men today, 40% of them still statistically don't talk. They just suffer in silence. Part of that is where we've moved, we don't know what to do with this shit. So, yeah, go ahead.
I notice, a lot of times, when we do want to talk, relationship, friendship, family, whatever it is, you and I talked about this in episode 2, is it's hard for us to talk. And so we don't feel like we should talk sometimes. But now it seems like when we do talk, our voice gets shunned, right? We're not masculine anymore. Steve's just being a little bitch because he's talking about his feelings. And if that comes from your relationship, your friendship, or your family, what are we going to do? We are going to stop talking. And if that's who you're around all the time, unfortunately, and, your relationship with, your wife or your spouse, and you can't tell them how you feel and your emotions because then you become a little bitch, we're going to go fast and run and hide in that hole. And same with friendship and family. It's okay for the other gender to tell their feelings all the time. We've all been in relationships where, family, friendship, or relationship, how was your day? A man might ask their, female friend. Then you get this blah of emotions and feelings and everything else that comes out. And that's okay, right? But then if they turn around and say, how was your day? And so-and-so hurt my feelings, I just don't feel that I could accomplish something, we automatically get told we're a piece of shit. Not always verbally. We can see it in their body. I'm thinking of the word, but you know what I mean?
Body language.
Body language. The quietness. And as men, if we're going to be open and authentic and vulnerable, we have to work through some of those weird things when we talk. Men and men, like you and I, can have those conversations, no problem. Could I have those conversations with other men? Maybe. But it's going to be very, very uncomfortable to have those conversations till we fill each other out. And I think if you're constantly surrounded by that type of stuff, we don't know where to put it. So we hold it inside in silence.
And you mentioned women want to see softer men. I think what you mean by that is they want to see more emotionally in tune men. Not necessarily having the masculine disappear. They just want to feel heard. I think I'm going to flip to potentially what I'm going to try and empathize here for a minute. So from the women's side, if you look at the past, men not being emotionally in tune I think that's caused a lot of divorce because there's an emptiness that exists in the relationship beyond the physicality. And the physicality is just a requirement. I'm talking sex when I say physicality. And so you have what is more of a transactional relationship than it is like an emotionally attached one. Right? You make money, you support, you do the thing. We don't really have an emotional relationship other than the tasks oriented to keep a household put together. And I think women are like, I want more, and by more, I want that emotional attachment that goes along with it. I don't mind doing the laundry and doing the dishes and cooking the food. That may be not the problem so much as it is, how can you show up for me when have emotional needs, right? And I'm going to pull up a Brene Brown quote here because when I was listening to you talk, this is one of the things, and I've heard her say this before, and it's Brene Brown from Rising Strong, The Reckoning, The Rumble, and The Revolution. There's a quote from this. Show me a woman who can hold space for a man in real fear and vulnerability, and I'll show you a woman who's learned to embrace her own vulnerability and who doesn't derive her power or status from that man. Show me a man who can sit with a woman in real fear and vulnerability and just hear her struggle without trying to fix it, which we're horrible at, or give advice. And I'll show you a man who's comfortable in his own vulnerability and doesn't derive his power from being Oz, the all-knowing and the all-powerful. Which means it's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to not fix it. Like one of our instinctual things, and I'll say this out loud, is if you have a problem, I want to fix it, right? I think that's what, as a man, that's what you want to try and do, right? Like here is said problem. It's also uncomfortable. You know, if I don't know how to deal with that emotion or sit with you in that emotion, then I'm uncomfortable too, and the whole thing's uncomfortable, and that uncomfortability is helplessness. It feels like shit. Well, if I go and do something, then this way I can make it go away. And in the end, it's not making it go away. It's allowing it to exist.
Yeah. And, make it worse too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times they're not looking for us to fix something. A lot of times when women are speaking, they're just, wanting us to emphasize and empathize and be there for them. Man brain goes, well, I want to fix it. Well, some things can't be fixed through whatever they're dealing with. The emotional support is more healing than us trying to go either physically fix something that can be fixed, because that's what we do. We try to physically fix everything. We're horrible at emotionally fixing the stuff because we're still figuring that out. And, a lot of times I hear women say, my spouse is not romantic, and only becoming sober do I understand what being romantic is, because romanticizing the pleasure I would get from substances is what I think women are looking for in romantic. I would hear romantic and I would think of, taking to dinner and roses and all that stuff, right? It's a thought, yes. But we've had discussions before where it's a hot summer day and I'm thinking about drinking that beer on the patio, romanticizing that, or mowing the lawn and romanticizing that beer while I'm mowing the lawn. Women do that with what they want from us. But we don't know how to freaking do that, right? We're trying to fix something. We think something's broken. It's just what they want. And if you're able to, verbalize that and have that talk, like, I really wish you would do this. It's back and forth. We both have those things. And it really just took understanding what, that word romantic means and being told in all my relationships I'm not romantic. Because I was always trying to fix that. I was told I was not romantic. So what does that mean? Physically fix something. Even though it was just, it's a thought, right? Romantic is a thought of how you want to be treated and all these other things. They can physically happen, but it begins with a thought in someone's head.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, and I'm going to play off that Brene Brown quote, is the disconnect and the reconnect is the conversation that needs to happen in the in-between, right?
Yeah.
And that goes for both sides. That is a man willing to say, hey, these are what my needs are, in a way that isn't, even if he hasn't found the proper words for it, that still isn't taken as insulting, right? Like, I'm going to say this and I'm already hesitant, but like, I want to fuck, like, let's have sex, right?
Right.
And that isn't an easy thing to do for a man. And I think it's not an easy thing to do for a woman either. But that's just only the one part of it. There's the, hey, I need you to just listen to me right now. Same scenario, right?
Yep.
Different outcome.
Yeah.
But exact same purpose, right? I need you to hear me right now, from a man or from a woman. Listen, I have a problem. I just need to get it off my chest. It is about you. I don't need you to solve it. I just need a conversation.
Just need to be heard.
Just need to be heard. And sometimes, because I go into fix-it mode, I just need that to be said.
Yep.
Right? Because it's being a mind reader is hard. And because one of the problems that I've run into is, and I think it's just the lack of communication, is women try and manipulate men into getting them to do the thing that they want them to do.
Yep.
And that fails.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And men trying to go out and do the stuff to get what they want from women. Right?
Yep.
So you have both of those things that are at odds, because the space in between is the conversation that needs to happen where those two sides melt.
Yeah. There's nothing there.
And that's where connection exists. That's, if we're going to talk about modern masculinity, and I looked this one up too, it's modern masculinity is a concept that includes being more compassionate, egalitarian. That's what we talked about, like sharing duties or equality and all of that stuff. I'm all for it. And expressive, like more expressive than traditional masculinity. And I think, to be honest with you, if you were to speak with women, I'm guessing they would find an emotionally intelligent somebody, a man who can express how he feels, even if he's still trying to figure it out how to do that in a proper way, is attractive to them. Because I think that's what they're missing. I think that's what they're wanting. They're wanting an emotional connection with their partner.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking back to where, this whole thing too, where, the majority of men are single now. Same with women, just because of the, they're not dating. Women have this is a society thing. Women want a guy that's over 6 foot, make 6 figures, all that
song, whatever the hell that song is.
All that, right?
Yep.
But when you said something where men can sit down and have that, emotional stability and talk, that comes from an older man, right? That comes from a wise man, right? And you'll hear one group of women saying they'll only date older men because they're more emotionally there. Then you hear this other group of women, well, I only want a rich man that's over 6 foot because he can give me the things I want money-wise. So we have money, then we have emotional.
Transactional, I call that transactional. That's what that feels like to me. It's a transactional relationship. Money, stuff, things.
Yep. Well, then we have over here all the other things, emotions, feelings, all that. Respect, support, we could go on. And there's this division. And men can see social media part, the Andrew Tate, right? The transactional side, right? Then do you see the Jordan Peterson side, the emotional support, all that? Two big difference, right? You see a big, huge, manly man over here with the money. Then you see this other guy that can sit there with his feelings and his emotions, and he's not as manly.
Yeah, but even Jordan Peterson says you still have to be dangerous as a man.
Well, I guess this is just what I mean by this is just, go ahead.
What makes you powerful is the decision to not use it.
I guess this is all based off looks. Just looks, knowing nothing else, right? That physical attraction going there. Mm-hmm. And we're more complex than that. When you see women wanting a man that is more Jordan Peterson type, that looks totally different than the ones that's going after the Andrew Tate and the transactional type. Mm-hmm. So as a man, we are in this weird spot. We don't know what women, what they want, or what they're looking for. So that's a huge thing for a lot of men to be like, well, I'm not even going to play this game because I'm just going to get hurt in the end. So I will just be fine with myself. Then that makes the women mad because no men want to talk to them anymore.
Yeah, honestly, I think we all need to get out there and get over ourselves and just start talking. Right? Burst your own little bubble. Go and talk to another man and another woman and just get different perspectives. I think we're too closed off.
Well, what's these things,
Yeah, we've all been hurt. Let's get that out. We've all been hurt. And we can use that hurt to create more division, which we're doing great at right now.
Wonderful.
Or we can use that hurt to actually fucking listen to people. Right? Mm-hmm. And in some ways we're good at that. In some ways we're absolutely horrible.
Yeah, great.
And I think that's where we are right now. We're right in the middle of this where it's just one giant dichotomy that you all need to just say, like, there's an imaginary wall there where it's just, that's what it is. It's fucking imaginary, dude. Like, seriously,
that wall's so high.
Just, I don't know. It's not even like at the point now where if you can't get hurt and you can't tolerate being hurt, then you're never going to discover what you are out there to try and discover. Yeah. Right? Then I'm just going to hold a past experience that I have against a new person that doesn't deserve my history overlaid on them. And we just need to stop doing that as people. Generally speaking, when you walk outside, 99.999% of your relations with people as you cross through them throughout their life are inconsequential, right? Like,
yeah.
Even if someone's a dick and even if someone is super kind, that kind person is obviously going to have a greater effect on you. There's that ripple. But what I'm saying is most people want to do good. There's the bad. Focus on the bad so much. We focus on the bad. And then the bad becomes detrimental to all of us. Right? Arg. I think we need to embrace the fear. We need to all get a little bit more emotionally stronger or continue to work on that. And I think that in some ways is happening. You call it the awakening or whatever the hell you want to call it. I think in some ways that's happening. It'd be nice if that happened sooner rather than later, because the environment that we live in requires us to look at ourselves, stop being afraid, and then showing up in some sort of kind, compassionate way where our differences are allowed to be our differences without shunning each other on the way there.
Yeah. We're all going to have differences. We're all not going to like the same thing or anything, right? And that is okay. That's what makes us who we are. But if you're going to judge yourself and carry yourself through life worrying about what other people think about you, you're going to have a long road ahead of you.
It is a shit life. I've done that. You've done that. Worry about what other people are going to... No thanks. No thanks. I don't want it. Not anymore. Robbie, do you think we should wrap this one up? We're at 40 some odd minutes here. Man, that flew by, dude.
It did.
That flew by. We're going to get back to this again next week. And once you and I figure out a time when we're going to record an episode, we'll see if we can figure out how to do this live on YouTube. And then we'll also maybe figure out if we can, I'm curious to see if we can get Kenny on and let's talk about resilience. I'd love to do that. And I think that would be a really cool conversation. A guy with amazing experience doing this himself, figuring out what resilience looks like. I think it'd be cool to have him on as a guest and we can have a three-way conversation about what resilience looks like.
Great. Let's do it.
All right. I will get a hold of him and surprise him and see what he's up to next weekend.
Maybe he's listening.
Sometime this week. Maybe. All right, man. I just want to finish off one more time with, if you're a guy out there, and I mean, man or woman, but a guy out there and you're suffering in silence, you don't have to be alone. I mean, Robbie and I, we're having this conversation because you and I suffered in silence. And I think it's about time that that men figure out what their voice looks like, what it sounds like. And I know it's messy on the way out, but you don't have to, it doesn't have to be the way it is. So I just want to say from two men to there's men that are out there right now, we love you.